Hey!
All right.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the technical errors, difficulties. We're here.
Well, we're trying to do this outside today, COVID practices, trying to be ship shape. So we're here in our outside patio, which is beautiful. If you haven't been down yet, come on down, enjoy a glass or a bottle, come up to the outside bar, fill your flasks, and you can go or you can stay. Usually we have misters going, but we have precious cargo, the cameras today. So we can't.
So no misters.
No
today.
misters today. So Donna and I are out here purely because we love the wine we're about to pour today, the Verdejo.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody.
Don't mind if I help myself to some more.
Donna's gonna get more.
Thank you.
We've been sitting out here for a while.
And up to you, Watson.
Before
You good?
I'm good for now. Before we get to the, what is this grape? Why do we have it for the first time ever? I just want to mention that the patio is open 11 to 6, just like the inside. Inside is still tasting by reservation only. If you show up to the door and we have seating available, we will accommodate you if we can. We just have, limits on staffing and space. And also, we posted earlier today on our social media, all of our flasks and tumblers match now. So each one has a pair. None of them are out in the woods by themselves, rambling along. So please come on down. If you haven't completed your set, do so.
Yeah.
You can only drink one flask at a time. That's what some people say. I don't abide by that. Come and get all 4. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about Verdejo.
Yeah.
So, Donna, what is Verdejo? Where does it come from? What is this grape?
Well, Verdejo is a grape that originated in Spain. It's from the northern part of Spain, about an hour north of Madrid, in the Rueda region. Very similar growing region to the Snake River Valley. It's a high elevation desert. Apparently they only have 2 seasons there. They have winter and they have hell. And so right now we are in the hell of our summer as well. It's the perfect growing season for Verdejo. So Verdejo is actually a grape that Melanie and Joe, when they were in Spain 8 years ago, they fell in love with it because of how beautifully it went when you're sitting outside on a hot day.
Yeah.
Crisp and refreshing with this beautiful, elegant finish. And it was something that Melanie really fell in love with. To hear her talk about it is really inspiring because when she came back to Boise, she contacted one of her favorite growers, Tim Martin of Emerald Slope Vineyard, and it was 8 years ago that she actually started this journey to get this wine in the bottle for you.
8 years.
8 years. Doesn't sound like it should take that long, but it did.
Yeah. That just kind of goes to show that making a wine, growing grapes, is not as simple as you go down to the succulent store and you get your succulent and you have it. And that's it. That's not how this works. So 8 years ago when they were on this trip and they came back and Melanie had doe eyes about Verdejo, she thought of Tim at Emerald Slope because he loves Spanish varietals. We already had Tempranillo from him, for example. So, okay, Tim, let's get some Verdejo. Well, I doubt many people that have had Verdejo because it's not a super common grape in the U.S. So Tim couldn't just, ask a neighbor for this. He had to go to a specific nursery, and it took a couple years to even cultivate that. And then it took 3 years to get it to where the fruit was probably good. But then we had snowpocalypse in 2017, so that was wiped out. And then the next year, snowpocalypse also caused the yield to be really low, so we didn't get that. And so finally, 2019, that vintage, we got some. And the cool thing, Donna, especially for folks like you who love the Verdejo, is this should be a wine that we release every single year. It's never going to be that much because Tim is the only place that we source from, but this should be a wine that you can count on every August for us.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of this wine.
No, you legitimately can't.
I can't. In fact, I agreed to do this today because they were going to allow me to drink another bottle of this.
Right.
So that's why I'm here.
It's not just customers that we're restricting this. It's also the staff. We aren't drinking it all, I promise.
Yeah.
No guarantees about the other wines, though. Though the other ones we are drinking a lot of. So, yeah, Verdejo. So let's talk about what this wine is.
Why do I love it?
Why do you like it so much? What's so good about it?
So, well, recently I've really gotten more into white wines, and some of my favorite varieties are, it's actually kind of a combination of my 2 favorite varieties. Sauvignon Blanc meets Pinot Gris.
Okay.
So I get those really beautiful, bright, citrusy notes, some green apple, like a Sauv Blanc. Yet there's a beautiful mid palate and a mouthfeel that's got a weight to it, which typically when I drink a wine like a Sauv Blanc doesn't have a long extended finish to it. It's pretty abrupt. This one goes on and on. I mean, I remember the first time I drank it, after a minute after sipping it, I was just like, I am still tasting this wine. It's amazing. So it's one I enjoy sipping, and it's also one I enjoy pairing. But yeah, it's just two of my favorite grape varieties. So yeah.
And had you had a Verdejo before ours?
I had heard of Verdejo, and if I had it, it was by chance.
Okay.
I didn't really know what I was drinking. I probably enjoyed it, but I couldn't get it very easily, so I just never pursued it. And so the fact that now I can get it and I know where to get it, although now I have to wait a year, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, and I guess you'll have to search for something that's not Snake River Valley fruit, because this is beautiful, but this is the first commercially produced Verdejo in Idaho. So we're the only ones that have done it so far. And like Donna said, the freshness of it does remind me so much of like a crisp Sauvignon Blanc or dry Riesling or any number of white wines that you just kind of sip while it's hot, or if you're having seafood. But then there is like a richness to it. So like our Viognier has like that body that like kind of lingers with you for a long time. And I will be curious to see if this becomes, the next generation's Viognier for Cinder almost, because when Cinder started, Viognier, not super commonly known in the U.S. either, but it grows really well here. And then Verdejo also grows really well here. And you can just smell it and taste it. And it's like, yes, if it needs a desert, then what are we waiting for? We're right here. So,
but really good point. I mean, before a few years ago, I really wasn't very familiar with Viognier either. So we all know how beautiful Viognier does here. And so this is just another one that I really look forward to seeing how that's going to develop.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, so you said you like to pair stuff with it.
I do.
So when we're drinking this, it's crisp but not like super high acid, and it's rich but it's not unctuous. So what do you like? What do you want with this?
Well, I typically think, an old adage, I read this, they say in Spain that this wine would go with anything that you would squeeze a lime over. So I tend to eat like that in the summertime. A lot of fish tacos, a lot of fish in general, grilled or oven baked. But I actually tried something interesting on Sunday night. I made something a little bit heavier. I don't know if you're not from Idaho, it was cool this weekend. Idaho's crazy. It goes from 100 degrees down to 60 degrees, and that's the kind of Sunday we had. So I made a dish that we call pork chops a la Palo. And Palo, you know who you are out there. This is seared bone-in pork chops. Sear them, take the pork chops out, put a ton of olive oil in the pan with tons of garlic and pepperoncini and the pepperoncini juice, and then shred some green onion, throw the pork chops back in, let it cook for an hour and a half to 2 hours. The meat just falls off the bone. You get that crusty white bread, you sop it up at the end. So you have a meal that has those bright notes of the pepperoncini, then you get the yeastiness of the bread, and all of it worked. It was really an experiment. I didn't know if it would work, and it worked perfectly. So perfectly that I know I owe you this meal.
Yeah.
I know Kaya's back there working the camera. She's also requested this meal, so pretty soon we've got to do a socially distanced pork chops a la Palo.
Yeah, I mean, you described that meal, and it's so, it just sounds so filling and delicious. And now I just want it. And it's funny because for me, I will eat anything that's good. I'll drink anything that's good. But one thing that immediately jumps out to me about this wine is how versatile it is. And it's clearly shown to be that in Spain too, because 40% of the white wine sales for Spanish wine is Verdejo, and Spain's the number 2 producer by volume in the world. That's a lot of Verdejo.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even call it Verdejo in a lot of places. They just call it their Vino Blanco.
Yeah.
Just their white wine. So it's just so prevalent there.
So this is something that's always on the table, and it's high quality. But that versatility allows you to eat it with a bunch of stuff. So like you had it with meat.
I had it with meat, and it was fantastic.
Which is not something you immediately jump to with white wine. And that's, for me, what I'm thinking is, okay, right now it feels like it's 110 degrees out here. Gosh, I can't wait till we can turn the misters on. But for me, in the summer, unless I'm barbecuing, I really don't like cooking inside, because if you have to turn on the oven or the stove, it gets so hot. And so I end up finding myself eating a lot of cheese and charcuterie as meals in the summer.
Yeah.
And so that richness, like jamon, Spain, obviously you think of red wine, but this would work with jamon because it's not going to overtake anything. And then find a creamy cheese that you can pair with.
Yeah.
And this will go with that too. And I can see why it works in Spain for that.
Wait, did you say cheese boards?
Look at this timing.
Wow.
Kaya Jones.
In case you're wondering, cheese boards are back at Cinder. How beautiful that is.
And they've been so popular so far.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Yeah.
Disposable, because we don't want to do as few dishes as possible to be safe. And they're curated by Crisp. So they were the caterer of the second week of our tasting experiences. They're lovely. Pre-COVID, you would have seen their food truck out here quite frequently. They do great stuff. So they curate 3 cheeses. They make the olive tapenade fresh, and then they have a seasonal chutney. Kaya, what's the chutney for this one right now? Peach chutney, and it's delicious. And then there's mixed nuts and fruit and grapes, and then a loaf of Acme ciabatta bread. So we have these. They're here until they're gone on weekends, so keep that in mind. Yeah. You can add carefully curated charcuterie, like salami, as well with it. So if you're hungry, you're drinking a glass of wine, maybe a Verdejo. If you're lucky, if you can twist someone's arm, come and grab a cheese board. They're back. So exciting. I'm going to dig into this soon, Kaya, but...
And we had a question. Someone asked I think Terrell asked if oysters would be an appropriate pairing, and I think the saltiness and the brininess of the oyster would actually be really beautiful with this, especially if you're going to squirt some kind of citrus over it, even some kind of vinegar over it. Yeah, so I would definitely pair this with oysters. I know that in New Jersey it's common to I used to eat clams on the half shell, and we used to put red wine vinegar. That would be the instead of squirting lemon on it. Well, I'm Italian. I can't help it. So we put red wine vinegar in the clams, and that's how we ate it. And it was delicious. So, having that brightness really does work well with this, especially because of the weight. It's not gonna drown it out. Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. And another thing too that reminds me, in the oysters question and the way you're describing, like, the red wine vinegar and the Italian way to do it. This type of wine is so common around the world. Like, every place has their white wine that goes with a bunch of stuff. Like in Italy, for example, in northern Italy, they have Pinot Grigio, they have Friulano, they have all these regional things. It just so happens in Spain that Verdejo produces a lot more of it. And the fact we don't have it here yet, I think, is going to change, because if it's this good, then we're probably going to do it. So I think we're getting close to having a couple more questions here. Kaya's furiously writing one down from, Kirk and Sarah Adams. Hi.
We miss you too.
We miss them too. I guess it's not a question. I guess they just say hi.
There was another question, though, that came in, and where does the name Verdejo come from, and does it have anything to do with the Spanish word for green? Yeah. Because obviously verde is green, and the wine is Verdejo. And I actually did look this up earlier, and the grape has a bluish-green hue to it. So the Spanish did have an idea in mind. There is a reason why they did call this Verdejo. If you look at the wine, it almost does take on a little bit of a green hue. It might be difficult to see in the camera. But it also sometimes picks up some green notes, like pepper or fennel. Yeah. Which is, again, you think of those Mediterranean dishes. Right. Anything that's cooked with those beautiful herbs and things goes so beautifully with this wine. Right. Yeah, and in an homage to that, I know that Melanie had them put the Verdejo as a green color on the label too. Yeah. So if you do have one at home, take a look at that. So the name does have that connection to it for sure. And like right now,
because it's warmed up a little bit now, and I might add
Probably, I'm
more.
getting more melon now.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's, if you're at home and you have this or anything, this happens with all wines, but man, the temperature change on this is changing it. You're getting less citrusy fruit, more melon, and definitely more of that pepper quality that's in there. Okay, here's a question. What makes a white wine taste like green veggies more than fruits? Yes, I remember my more than and less than symbols. Thank you, Kaya. Well, okay, what makes a white wine taste like green veggies more than fruit? There's a couple ways this can go. One is the actual grape just has those qualities. This happens with white wines sometimes. So like Verdejo, like you were just saying, can have that quality a little bit. And that's just a natural tendency of the aromatics of the grape. There's these phenolic compounds in the grape that are unique to each grape. It's not something that you want necessarily in red wines. The most common one I'm thinking of is Cab Sauv, or anything that's in the Sauvignon family, so even Sauvignon Blanc. And that greenness, that green pepper, sometimes that jalapeno on the real far end, is from the pyrazines, which are also naturally within the grapes. And if that's really prominent, that likely means that those grapes did not hang enough long on the vine.
A little underripe.
A little bit underripe. They naturally fall out over time. It's actually one of the reasons that we don't really do a 100% Cab Sauv at Cinder from Snake River Valley fruit, because Cab can't really hang long enough here. Whereas Verdejo, it's not overpowering. The pyrazines aren't there, so it's just naturally something that's the terroir, the grape, that mysterious terroir that's kind of there. And do you like wines like that? Because I find that I do, but if it's like some Sauv Blancs sometimes get a little too much, like it's like really freshly mowed grass.
Too grassy.
But this is not that.
No, this is not that. This
Yeah.
is not that. And to your point about the greenness too, the other thing that I read is kind of interesting about Verdejo is that it pairs with asparagus. And
Really?
it's a classically difficult vegetable to pair wine with. But again, because of that kind of those green notes, it is a classic asparagus pairing.
All right.
Yeah.
Throw that
so
on the
all
barbecue.
of us asparagus fans out there.
Is it risky to grow a new variety for a grower? Any concerns with this wine in the Snake River Valley? All right. I don't want to get too far off my skis, out of my skis. What's the term? I don't remember.
Ahead of my skis?
Ahead of my
I think
skis.
that's it.
It's not ski season, okay? I'm out of practice. Is it risky to grow a new variety for a grower? Without being a grower, and after talking with Tim about a month ago for one of these virtual tastings, definitely seems risky. Like, he kind of just said like it was exciting, but it's like, dude, you're sinking money into this. You really don't know. And especially for something like Verdejo, I think we really have to applaud Emerald Slope and Tim for how good this turned out, because you don't have a precedent for it in this area. Like, you can take how similar the climates are in Rueda and the Snake River Valley, and how similar our elevations are. Like, legitimately, they're both 2,500 foot average elevations. Like, it should work, but until you do it, you really don't know. So of course it's a risk. But you also, if you're smart and you know what you're doing, you take calculated risks. So
Correct.
he was already growing Spanish grapes, so
And, having a collaboration with Melanie,
yeah.
who is also, she has her opinion on it. I mean, she obviously has a background in viticulture as well. And so being able to collaborate, I mean, that's an 8-year commitment.
Right.
And you really have to trust each other to know that you're going to get to a good place.
Yeah. So no, I don't have worries about this, except we need more people to plant it. Or maybe Tim can plant some more. So.
I hope so. Tim, please. I need more.
Okay.
So.
Any wine aging considerations / flavors with Verdejo? Interesting question. So I know Donna did some research and I did some research about this, because and thank you, Mike and Jean, for the question, because I don't think of this wine as an age-worthy wine.
I don't either.
But
I'm drinking this now.
Yeah, drink this now. If you have it at home, drink it now. Most Verdejo is produced in stainless steel and is supposed to be drank within the first year that it's released.
As ours is. Correct.
That's normal. But one thing I did read up on was some people, and I think you had this too, you came across this, some people do age it in oak. That would change things. I don't know how frequent you're going to find a Verdejo aged in
Right.
oak unless you go to Spain.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something Melanie will explore
Yeah.
in the next few years. That could be a small lot series. I'm not promising anything.
Right.
But yeah, it's really not typical to age this in oak, and just drink it now. I mean, if you have this around in a year, just drink it. Don't save it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the only other thing I noticed was, so in Rueda, that's a common area where grapes for sherry are grown, and I don't know how many of you have had sherry. It's a very strange dessert wine, fortified wine, and Palomino is one of the main grapes for it. So Verdejo has a history, which is like 1,000 years old at this point, of sometimes being made into a sherry, but it's not common anymore. So maybe you could get that too. I guess the other thing that we should note, we're talking and waxing about how great this wine is. Unfortunately, we're capping it for sales.
I know, don't kill us.
So usually this is the time where we're going to try to upsell you guys like crazy. We're like, get it now. It's going to sell out. Well, you can't get it now because it's already selling out. And so unfortunately, if you got some in your wine club allocation, good for you. If you're able to come try it in the next couple weeks before we send the rest out to the shipping customers, please do.
Yeah.
But right now, this is it.
It'll be gone soon.
I guess one thing that we've learned is that people really like this wine already.
Yeah.
And again, like we said earlier, it is going to be here next year and hopefully for the foreseeable future. But this wine and the 2018 Dry Viognier, that's down to 5 to 10 cases. So if you like the 2018 Dry Viognier, jump on that as soon as you can. And then
the other one that sends shivers down my spine is that we're down to only maybe 10 cases of the Rosé of Syrah.
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's still summer.
And it's still summer.
So, yeah.
So we can't give you more of this, but think about those other two, and think about going out and finding some Verdejo from like the Co-op wine shop or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow,
that's another pairing.
that is a great pairing. When are we coming to your house for dinner, Terrell? Razor clams fried with a citrus risotto.
Oh, man.
I know.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we got to consider the clams or the oysters thing. I'm not sure. I might start digging into some of this cheese board
Yeah.
situation. And
really looking at that chutney as well to provide some
look at that.
really
Yeah, the
interesting
chutney.
flavors. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, since we started late, I think we should let people get back to their lives. And we've talked about Verdejo. And I guess the last thing before we go, let me take a sip,
Yeah. Okay.
is let's sign off, Donna, with of all the cinder wines that you've had and sold here, where do you put this in terms of standouts? Like, you've
That's
worked
a
here
tough
longer
question.
than me. I've been
Yeah.
here 2.5 years. She's been here, what is it now, 5 years, 6 years?
5.5. I
5.5.
think. Yeah.
And we were talking about it because this isn't technically our small lot series wine, but production-wise, it's even lower than that. So we've had some over the years, like the Roussan Marsan a couple of years ago. We've had the Ville de Jardin. Where do you rank this?
Outstanding.
I'm going to be unfair. Like, where do you put
You are
it?
unfair. But I like to say, and I don't have children, but I can only imagine what that's like. But it's like picking a favorite child. You really can't do it. You like certain ones on certain days, and on other days you don't. This is right up there. It immediately shot up to the top. Ville des Jardins for me is one of the most amazing wines I've ever had.
Yeah.
Our Viognier is consistently amazing. And like I said, I'm kind of in the point of my life where white wine is maybe something I'm drinking a little bit more than red wine these days. So I do appreciate having all of these really gorgeous choices here at Cinder.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm not picking a favorite.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, I'm not either. I don't ask fair questions like I'm going to answer them too. But I will say that I'm really excited that we have this in our lineup. If you haven't picked up your wine club allocation yet, and you were like, what is this Verdejo? Hopefully this live tasting helps you come down and realize that you're in for a treat. And then next year we look out for some more of it. And again, make sure that if you haven't visited our patio yet, 11 to 6 every day, the mist will be going, the shade will be going. It won't be 100 degrees every day here very shortly. And it's awesome what Joe and Mike and Karen and Christina and everyone on the staff has done to make this patio worthwhile, because we have the space to do it, and we miss all of you, and we can't have all of you in the building anymore. So please pay us a visit, drink some white wine, and until next time.
Yeah, make the appointment for the tasting room. Say hi to me.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah.